You count on Native America Calling for timely and entertaining conversations every day. Now, Native America Calling is counting on you. We are ending the year with a fundraising drive to keep the conversations going. And when you make a donation of any amount between now and the end of the drive, December 31st, you'll be entered to win 2 Alaska Airlines tickets as our thank you for supporting Native America Calling. Go to nativeamericacalling.com and click on the button that says Donate Today. Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Sterling Harjo's FX series The Lowdown stars Ethan Hawke, but has notable appearances from Native actors like Graham Greene, Kanyetio Horn, and Devery Jacobs. The beloved AMC series Dark Winds is picked up for another season, and A Tribe in Maine has insights into the evil clown Pennywise. Those are some of the mainstream hits we'll talk about this hour, plus some less well-known projects as we look back at the year in film and television right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. The internment of Japanese Americans during World War II is among the chapters of U.S. history that the Trump administration is actively working to erase. It's part of a sweeping campaign to remove so-called disparaging signs and markers of the country's past and focus only on, quote, American greatness. In the final installment of a series on the camps, KJZZ's Gabriel Pietrozio visits the Colorado River Indian tribes to see how others are making sure victims are highlighted in, not erased, from the history books.
Inside a strip mall owned by the tribe, hundreds flock to its museum in Parker. Director Valerie Welsh-Tabo says her space used to be an old swimwear shop. Tucked in one teal-hued corner is an exhibit dedicated to the posting camp's 18,000 internees.
This was already up here, this structure in this store. And I said, let's hang on to this. Just because of where it was situated and because of the design, it just spawned that idea.
To honor Poston's past, another way the museum is paying respect is by welcoming Soto Zen Buddhist priest Duncan Ryukin Williams and his Virecho.
Cho means like a book or a registry. And so we created a book with everybody's names in it and said, how do we honor everyone? And we came up with this idea of stamping or placing this mark under people's names.
The Japanese word ire essentially means to console the spirits, and that's what Williams hopes his book does by bringing forth personhood and dignity one name at a time.
A lot of government camp rosters mangle Japanese names, so we can't honor people if their names are misspelled.
And their goal
is to make sure all 125,284 people whose names are printed in this book get at least one mark of acknowledgement.
There's still 30,000 names unmarked, but Williams has a plan.
We'll just systematically, from the beginning of the book, invite the general public to come and place a mark under the next name in the sequence of names that doesn't yet have a mark.
Myself included.
I think this person, Hisayo Kotsubo, does not yet have a stamp. She's born in the year 1897. So if I could ask you to just place this stamp right under the letter H.
Their blue tip stamp is no bigger than your thumb. Some even practice that art of dotting with Susan Kamei.
It's a personal story.
Her parents, grandparents, and one set of great-grandparents were internees. Her dad's side was brought to Poston, while her mom's ended up in Heart Mountain, Wyoming.
I try to put myself in their shoes.
84-year-old Janet Brothers doesn't have to imagine, because she lived it.
I was here at camp as a baby. I was 6 months old, feeling the heat, looking around, seeing the desert and the mountains, knowing that that's what my parents saw every day. It was very emotional for me.
For National Native News, I'm Gabriel Pietrozio reporting from Parker.
The National Congress of American Indians is remembering the life of former U.S. Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell, who died Tuesday at age 92. NCAI President Mark Macaro, in a statement, said Campbell broke barriers and left a path for those who seek to follow as leaders in Indian country and in America. Campbell is being remembered for his work on Indian policy and elevating Indian country issues, serving on the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. The Associated Press reports his daughter said he died of natural causes, surrounded by family. I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tribal Development Partners, helping tribes build toward their goals through 105L leasing and essential facility development, empowering sovereignty, strengthening community. More at tribaldevpartners.com, proud supporters of this show. Support for law and justice-related programming provided by Hobbs, Strauss, Dean & Walker, LLP, a national law firm dedicated to promoting and defending tribal rights for over 40 years. More information available at hobbsstrauss.com.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. A group of Choctaw men hunt down an Irish vampire through the Mississippi Delta in the blockbuster hit film Sinners. A fictional tribe in Maine is key to fighting an evil supernatural clown in the television show It, Welcome to Derry. Those are two big mainstream hits in 2025 that include Native storylines with Native actors and considerable Native input. But not every production was monsters and otherworldly creatures. Showrunner Sterling Harjo waded into the neo-noir detective genre with his series The Lowdown, and famed Inuit director Zacharias Kunuk won Best Canadian Feature at the Toronto Film Festival with a film spoken entirely in the Inuit language in The Wrong Husband. We're running down top Native film and television from 2025 with our Native Film Watchers. Tell us your favorite movie, TV show, or documentary from this year. You can share comments and questions by calling 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from Los Angeles, California is Johnny J. She is the founder of Red Pop News. She is Oto Missouri and Choctaw. Johnny, good morning and welcome back to Native America Calling.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Joining us in our Albuquerque, New Mexico studio, we have Jason Asnap. He is a writer, critic, and a filmmaker. He is Comanche and Muskogee. Jason, welcome back to the show. Great to have you on again.
Hi, good morning.
And joining us from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, we have Sunrise Tipacani. He is the director of programming at Dead Center Film and a co-host of the Real Indigenous podcast. He is Comanche, Navajo, and Cherokee. Sunrise, great to have you on the show as well, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Yeah, Maduweka, thanks for having me. This will be fun.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun. And Johnny, I want to begin with you. One of your favorite titles this year is an Inuit film. We talked about it in the intro here, The Wrong Husband. It's by an acclaimed Inuit director and won the Toronto Film Institute's Best Canadian Feature Award. What did you love about this film?
I love just the whole atmosphere. We don't hear a lot about Inuit people, especially down here in the States. And so for us to get that glimpse of their storytelling, their folklore, and being able to see that translated into film, into their own language even, was something that's so powerful, because we're starting to see a rise of Indigenous filmmaking that is in our Indigenous languages, which is, just a fantastic thing to see, because we're telling our own stories. It's, we're all excited when we had Star Wars translated into Navajo, and Finding Nemo, and we've seen Prey, which was done in the Comanche language, which was absolutely phenomenal. But to see more of our languages being used in film, I think is just such a wonderful thing. And that's one of the things that really drew me to this film, because you had to find all of these people who could speak the language. And that's something that we should be aspiring to as Indigenous people in learning our languages, and being able to tell our stories. But this film, the atmosphere, the acting, the story itself, there's a reason why this film has been so acclaimed. But it's just such a beautiful film. And I think it's just, we need to have more exposure to these different types of stories, to have that diversity in Native representation, because we're not just all on reservations. We're not all just in urban areas. We come from very vast, different backgrounds, experiences, and where we're situated is very different. And so it's really nice to be able to see all of these different stories being told in all of these different ways.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So many films, television shows coming at us from so many different communities, so many cultures. Jason, how about you? One of your favorite films from this year is a documentary. And as I understand it, you didn't expect to like it as much as you did. It's titled Remaining Native. What's special about this film?
Yeah, so Remaining Native, it kind of goes into tropes, native tropes that I'm kind of resistant to watch when it comes to documentaries, when it comes to Native documentaries, because it's like we're always talking about running. That's a common theme. And then boarding schools is a common theme. And boarding schools, that's an important topic, but, it gets to be a bit of a bummer after a while. I'm just like, oh, gosh, I need something more optimistic. But this documentary, it deals with both of those topics, and it kept me engaged. And I was very the lead character. It's centered on this young Native Koo Stevens, who is a runner, hence the name, or hence the topic of the film. And so basically, the film centers around this young Native who's trying to better himself and get into college and run at an elite university. And so the story follows that storyline, but then it goes into another second half of the second half of the story. Kind of goes into him trying to basically he's holding a memorial run for his grandfather who had escaped from boarding school. So you have both of these kind of topics, these important topics in the same documentary. And Paige Bethaman, who's the director of the documentary, I thought handled the story very well, kept me engaged. I became a fan of Koo Stevens, and I was really rooting for him. It's just a really well-told, optimistic story about this young Native kid who's trying to better himself and succeed. And he comes from a good, supportive family, and it's just really fascinating to see him on his path.
We've had Koo Stevens on the show before. He's a wonderful guest, and Paige Bethman, this was her debut film, I believe.
Yeah, and I had gone to a screening. After I'd written about this for Alta Journal magazine, and I'd gone to a screening in person with her, talking about her. In the Q&A, she talked about actually picking up and moving to the community in Nevada, and really just kind of throwing herself into the film and dedicating her life to this story. And I thought that was super, just inspirational for an artist or a filmmaker to just like believe in the work that much and just up and move to the community that you're telling the story about. I mean, that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Documentary film Remaining Native made the top list for Jason Asnap. And Sunrise, you have described 2025 as a transitory year for Native film and television. What do you mean by that, and how do you compare this year's releases from previous years?
Yeah, so the transition, I think, is just looking at a period of time where we had a lot of indigenous upfront work by very large funded sources. So like FX, for example, supporting reservation dogs, which was very directly about being indigenous. But now Sterling's new work, the Lowdown, not indigenous upfront, but indigenous led. And we're kind of seeing that across the board. I mean, the fact that we kind of see a lot of our indigenous actors included in roles that are not necessarily indigenous forward. Some might think that's sort of a step backwards, but really it's just like, to me, the way that I see it is that we are being considered on the level playing field as any other background, right? So like Lily Gladstone in The Wedding Banquet, or Amber Midthunder in Novocaine, or Opus, or Devery Jacobs in Oh What Fun. The fact that these actors are placed in these positions because they're the right person, and not because they are maybe the indigenous identity that they might be trying to defend. I feel like that's a really great sign that we are being recognized for our talents, and because we're the right person for a role, and not so much a token that might have happened before. And so there's an interesting transition that's happening there. And while I say that, like the film Tiger, that I think is like one of the strongest films this year. I saw that with Jason over at Sundance, and that is also someone who is leading the charge. Lauren Waters, Cherokee Kiowa filmmaker. She is documenting the work of Dana Tiger and the Tiger family and the resurrection of their T-shirt business. And that's very forward, but it's also because it was the right person, and it wasn't necessarily about trying to prove that we're Native, trying to prove that we're Indigenous. It's depicting who we are today, and it's about our personalities, what makes Dana shine, what makes the artwork shine, and all of those things are really impressive to me. The fact that we are being recognized for who we are, and not just the fact that we've survived. That's part of it, but what are we doing now? I think that's what's being celebrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The evolution. And I couldn't agree more. I love it when I go see just a regular mainstream movie and there's a Native actor in there. You mentioned, the wedding movie with Lily Gladstone, and there were little discrete moments when you knew she was Native. At one point, she's talking about her community, and I think she goes to one of those events and she's got like some Native earrings on. So for people who really know Lily Gladstone and kind of know what's going on, you could tell. But for a lot of people, probably just, hey, that's just a really good actor right there. Really good person, really just sharing their craft in a really cool movie. So this is a good show today, folks. We are talking about big movies, big television series, documentaries, everything from 2025. We're getting the rundown. We've got great guests on the line here who can walk us through some of these productions. And of course, the phone lines are open, as always, for listeners who would like to join this conversation. Tell us what you have liked especially about the year 2025 with regard to Native film and television. Just call us. You know the number, but I'm going to tell you anyways. 1-800-996-2848. Again, 1-800-996-2848. We're ringing in the best of 2025, and we want to hear from some listeners along with our guests. So what are you waiting for? Pick up that phone, call 1-800-996-2848. Share your insights with Native film and television. An online collection of documents, artifacts, and artwork aimed to expand people's understanding of indigenous slavery. Focused mainly in the Americas, the Native Bound Unbound project gives the public access to materials representing centuries of information. We'll hear more on the next Native America Calling.
Repatriation is the return of ancestors and stolen culture. The Association on American Indian Affairs is hosting the 11th annual Repatriation Conference, Feeding the Fire, Advancing the Movement, in February 2026. This fully virtual conference will offer small group interactive workshops, strategies, networking, and more to advance domestic and international repatriation. More at Indian-Affairs.org. The association supports this show.
Thank you for listening to Native America Calling. We are looking at some of the best Native film and television shows of 2025. What film, documentary, television show, or short stood out to you this year? Join us with a comment or question. Call 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Let's now hear part of an interview with Colville tribal citizen Kimberly Guerrero, who plays Rose in the HBO Max series It, Welcome to Derry. The show is about a supernatural clown that preys on children in a small town in the early 1960s. Rose and her tribe hold the wisdom to fight the clown. She talked to producer Sol Traverso on Zoom. She says she wants audiences to see an authentic portrayal of a complex Native American character.
I think that especially our audiences at Native American Calling will appreciate the generational knowledge that has been handed down throughout, the centuries and possibly even millennia. And that embodied knowledge, commitment to the understanding of those traditional lifeways and the understanding of where the spirit worlds and the material worlds connect and intersect, and the reciprocity between those two worlds. You'll see a lot of that in Rose and her community and the circle that she's a part of. And so I really hope Indigenous audiences will really resonate with that. We did so much work on our end, personally and collectively, with John Bear Mitchell, who was our Penobscot elder and consultant, and Tazba Chavez, who was a director and producer and just had so much of her hands and wisdom in this, and Cherie Dimmeline, who was writing and producing on the show as well. So we had a really great group of people, and Joshua Ojic, who played Daniel. And so everybody was bringing their knowledge to these roles. And I hope our community will see themselves kind of as Indigenous folks and what we kind of collectively believe, and also the specificity of the Wabanaki Nation.
As an actor, you have to latch on to your character's story. In this case, the storyline is fantastical. So as a Native actor, you also have a responsibility to not add any real harm from past movies and shows. So where do you see these two roles meet in this show?
That's really beautifully said. And I don't think I've ever heard it articulated. Like, literally, that's what I've been doing my entire career since the 90s. But I've never heard it said that way. But it's always foundational to the roles that I take and the way that I approach a character is that not only do no harm, but always honor. And within that, honoring requires preparation. It requires asking the right questions of the right people. And then for me, it requires a lot of prayer to make sure that even when I've done all that intellectual work, that I've also done the spiritual underpinning of, just making sure that I'm honoring the nation that I'm playing. And then within that, that unique character and maybe the family they represent. Because I know that story is medicine, and it can be good medicine and it can be bad medicine and harmful. And when we see stereotypes, when we see Indigenous characters or any characters that aren't, especially from people that have been traditionally othered in mainstream media, that it does harm and it dehumanizes that culture and those people. And we're trying to do the opposite, right? We're trying to create fully realized human beings. So Rose in Welcome to Derry was really quite, I don't want to say easy because it was a lot of hard work, but she was easily accessible. Let's put it that way. Having John Bear Mitchell there and being able to rely on somebody that is so integral to the community and to their ways allowed me to have a touchstone for authenticity of playing that unique people group. But then for me as Kimberly, I'm a college professor. I've been working out in our Native communities for over 30 years with our youth. And so I'm very protective. I'm a bit of a mama bear for all my babies that are now, now they're having babies and now grandbabies probably. So there's a natural protective quality that Kimberly, myself, I come with as a human being coming to the role. And so that intersection in Rose was a really accessible, quite instantaneous connection. And so that's kind of how I grounded the character and the storyline and was able to stay, even though, as you said, it can be fantastical at moments. It never felt that way to me. It always felt very like this could really be happening, and this is how we have to tackle it.
That was part of an interview with actress, screenplay writer, and University of California, Riverside professor Kimberly Guerrero. An extended version of that interview will be available on our website, nativeamericacalling.com. 1-800-99-NATIVE is the number for listeners to join the conversation. Tell us your favorite films, television shows, Native themed from 2025. And Johnny J., I want to go back to you in Los Angeles because another project that made your list is also set in the Arctic and has a creepy monster element. Inquo for When the Starving Return. What does this animated short do for you?
Oh, man. Again, we're seeing these different perspectives of what it is to be Indigenous in this world, right? We all have these different stories that, even if we're from different tribes, like they always carry these common themes. And, for Inquo, what I really loved is it's starting to shift the narrative and showing more diversity. In fact, like this film is one of the more beautiful things about this is that it's about an individual who is gender fluid. And so we're getting to kind of see like a two-spirit perspective of what it is to be a part of this world and, using your gift and even the things that we consider to be burdens are things that we can use to, to defend ourselves and also to kind of just grow as people. And that's what this entire film is about, this young person who is just discovering who they are and having to use that knowledge to defend against a whole army of like these ferocious monsters to save the world. And, with, just each battle, this person is becoming, stronger, they're becoming wiser and, starting to realize that it's almost just like a call to action to fight and protect against like forces of greed around us. I mean, it's just so beautifully animated. The artwork is absolutely fantastic. When you're watching it, you just can't look away. So I think that's what, I really loved about that film.
Okay. We have to talk about It, Welcome to Derry. It was one of the most top-watched shows on HBO Max. And, of course, it's a prequel to the Stephen King classic based on the 1986 book, It. Johnny J., what were your thoughts on this show?
I have mixed. I love the series. I had a hard time getting into it. It took me until the second episode to be committed to being like, okay, I got to watch this. But once I got into it, I absolutely love the storyline. And, I really love the Native representation. The talent was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Joshua Hojic is, just this up-and-coming talent who's had a wonderful year. He's been in several different projects from Dusk and Dawn to Sweet Summer Powwow and, of course, Welcome to Derry. And he's just a phenomenal actor. And he really sold this part to the point where, at the finale, like I'm screaming at the TV, just like, no, why? You better not. Every time he came on screen. And, it was just such a fun storyline. And the way that the natives were portrayed, the role that they had in this story as these protectors who understood that, we can't save everybody, but we're going to do what we can to contain this and to save who we can. And the moment that I absolutely loved was, and spoiler alert for folks, is, in the finale, at the end of everything, when they're wrapping it up, one of the protectors from the community, he's just like, well, see you S word, A word in 27 years. And we know that phrase from Reservation Dogs.
Yeah, we do.
But, it was such a fun storyline. And the show itself was fantastic. And I'm a huge fan of it. You know, for me, it's a little personal because that was the first time that I have ever seen the Ottomazura people mentioned in mainstream media was when I read it. And I still remember highlighting Ottomazura in the book as I was reading it, you know, because for me, that was just like the coolest thing as a young Native kid who loved Stephen King, was to see my tribe mentioned. And even though it was kind of like horrible representation, it was, you know, still pretty cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. Sunrise, I want to ask you about another one of your favorites, The Legend of Fry Roddy, The Rise of the Doe. It's about a half Navajo, half Bengali woman navigating identity during a chaotic bread competition. What did you like most about this film?
Yeah, so this film, just very energetic. There's such a great depiction of the personality of the auntie. And in this case, we've got somebody that is of multicultural descent, seeing these two family members from a Navajo side and a Bengali side, and they're both known for how they make their bread. And of course, the question will come up is whose bread is better? And, you know, it's just kind of quirky and fun, and the director is both the star and the writer and the producer of this, and you kind of see all these talents, like the talent of these women making the bread. You see the talent of this particular individual as she crafts a narrative for you, and you're just kind of hanging out with these individuals and kind of having fun, and it's nice to have something that is lighthearted, that celebrates our food, that celebrates the women in our life. And it's at the end of the day, it's not really about the competition. It's about how the food and our connection to our community, our relationships to our relatives are what really enrich us. And at the end of the day, they all make the best bread, really. So that's real resilience to me. And the fact that it's all about today. It's all about something that is just average access. I can go into my kitchen, I can think about this film, and I can resonate and value what's happening in my own kitchen. I don't have to go somewhere exotic. And sometimes it's difficult for me to look at a film that's historic, because I have to really figure out how to put myself in a place of a different time and context. But when I've got a character that's, you know, in a kitchen, in a place with food and access to relationships that I identify with, it just really resonates in a way that I think is really powerful and really necessary. And it's just, it's also great to kind of see this mixture of identities. I feel like that's sometimes something that we don't see all that often, and that's certainly part of our world today. And it's also it's always great to see food on film, I think. And you know, it's infectious, and it's great that this is part of that we can have people who maybe never been introduced to these kinds of foods to see how delicious they are and how much joy they bring.
I had a chance to watch The Legend of Fry Roddy. It's a short, of course, so you know it's not very long, but just the elements of the competing cultures I found really fascinating, because the Bengali, you know, that auntie, boy, she was fierce. And of course, the Navajo auntie was fierce, and they were just going at it, you know, just really just, you know, letting loose. It was awesome. Jason, we want to talk more about documentaries, because everyone has a lot of them on their list this year. Is there something driving Native documentaries now more than before?
Gosh, you know, I don't know. I'm not even really generally a documentary guy, but I've watched, you know, a few that were very memorable to me this year. And I don't know what it is about this resurgence, I guess. I don't know. But I'm into it. You know, I'm into this documentary reconnaissance. I don't know.
Well, I know Tiger, that was mentioned briefly by Sunrise, and that was on your list, and it's about a famous Muskogee artist family. And again, it's a short 13 minutes, so it doesn't, you know, a director really has to make it happen in that short time frame. What does that film really accomplish in your view?
Gosh, it packs a lot of punch. It's dealing with this, you know, legendary Oklahoma art family, the Tiger family, and Jerome Tiger in particular, who's just a legend in, you know, Oklahoma households. Anyone that knows about art or Indian art has heard, you know, the legend of Jerome Tiger, a young artist who tragically died an early death, but left many paintings. He was just a Muskogee talent. And then you have, the rest of the story is the Tiger family and the Tiger T-shirt business, which I actually was not aware of. And it's a lot of material for a short amount of time. And Lauren Waters is a very sophisticated, talented director. I was blessed to meet her and Dana at Sundance earlier this year. I was according to Lauren, I was the first person to interview them both on camera. And I did this collaboration with Forge Project, and it's on Instagram. And I got a good I got a good interview, and I talked we had a good discussion. Dana was very, very charming, very interesting subject. I could see why Lauren, chose her to tell the story. It's just I would like to see a longer feature of this story, like a feature-length story. I think I've heard her in another interview say that she wasn't interested in doing that, but maybe she could be talked into it. Of course, it would take financing and money, but it would be really cool to see a larger a feature-length version of this film, because the subject and the Tiger family in general they're fascinating. The story it deserves a longer a length, a feature length.
Jason, we have to take another break here in just a moment, but 2025 for you, these projects that you're able to see in the theater, are you still going to theaters these days? Or are you doing more and more viewing by streaming and online?
I prefer watching movies in the theater. It's a better experience. You're watching it collectively with people. It's a bigger screen. The sound's usually better than my TV. I have a decent, sound, but it's a sound bar, but it's not a theater cinema experience. So for me, it's always going to be about the cinema.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can get a good home theater going, but it's just you can't get the same kind of the bass and all the. Yeah, it's just awesome. 2025, we are running down top native film and television from the year. And listeners, please join this conversation. Let us know your favorite picks. 1-800-996-2848.
Skugtash. For more than 40 years, Ramona Farms has revived ancient traditional foods, tepary beans, pinoli, polentas, and more, all from store.ramonafarms.com. Ramona Farms supports this show. Tomye.
Need help identifying community priorities? Kaufman & Associates' approach to evaluation is rooted in indigenous knowledge, honoring tribal history, and sovereignty. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
You are listening to Native America Calling. We're looking back at some of the best native film and television of 2025 before we start the new year. Share with us what films or TV shows stood out to you this year. You can comment on our website or also our social media pages like Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Our three guests today: Johnny J., founder of Red Pop News; Jason Asnap, a writer, critic, and filmmaker; and Sunrise Tipacani, director of programming at Dead Center Film and a co-host of the Real Indigenous podcast. These are people who really know movies. They know native movies. They know native television, and they're giving us all the scoop on what to pay attention to for this year. And Jason, I want to talk about television and Sterling Harjo's The Lowdown. And of course, it stars Ethan Hawke, and it blends noir and comedy. Can you briefly get us up to date on what Lowdown is about, and how do you see Sterling Harjo's style evolve in this latest series?
I would describe The Lowdown as a hangout show. It's kind of like a Richard Linklater film where it's a good hang. It doesn't propel. It's a mystery. It's a noir. In my opinion, it's not the destination. It's the journey, and it's just Sterling's such a great storyteller, and he loves Tulsa. I mean, he'll tell you about it. He'll tell you. he'll tell just about anybody how fun and cool Tulsa is, and he makes it look really fun and really cool. And I just every week I would be, anticipating the next episode, and I was just really into the journey. And this the editing of the show, and it was so cool. It really just like the storytelling, the editing, the acting, the performance by Ethan Hawke was incredible. I mean, he was probably a big part of the success of the show. He's just such a talented actor. And then you have Cody Lightning in there who brings some of the levity, the indigenous comic levity there. And it kind of what Sunrise had said, and it's something I've thought about, is like the year of transition to where you have Reservation Dogs, the big show that Sterling brought to us. It was primarily indigenous. It was telling indigenous stories. It was indigenous from top to bottom. And then we have this kind of next level of storytelling, and what Sterling's doing is he's bringing this story of this white guy who is a detective in Tulsa, and you have indigenous characters in part of this series, but they're not the main focus of this show, which kind of like, to me, it's impressive that Sterling basically is giving us a wider variety of his storytelling technique, and he's made it interesting, and the music was incredible. It's the vibe. It's just a good hangout, and I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I thought that Sterling reached another level of storytelling with this series.
He wants to hear about Dale, Grandpa.
Oh? What about him? He was a good man. It's a shame they had to kill him.
Kill him? Who killed him?
The demons got inside his head, and he couldn't take it, I guess.
Tell him about the land. Our land. Tell him what you told Dale.
Oh. I told him where the land came from. His land.
What? Dale Washburn's land?
The whole family. Old Nate Washburn's first parcel. But before that was my grandpa's land.
So you mean Indian Head Hills is your family's land?
My pa used to harvest medicine on that land. He told me the whole story about how they lost it. My pa was still a boy.
We can do this deal right here, right now. What do you say?
Mahjong, Anna Skonsta, Base, the Eka, Walik Shedeno.
And that's how my grandpa lost the land.
This is Sol Traverso, producer of Native American Collins, jumping in here. Jason, we just heard a clip from The Lowdown. That was actor Graham Greene with Ethan Hawke. I was wondering if you can talk about Graham's appearance in that role and kind of what stood out to you.
Oh, it was so good to see him in this role, and he's one of my favorite actors of of all time, really. And just from what he might have one more performance and something coming up. I'm not quite sure. I haven't looked at his IMDb, but it was so refreshing to see him in in the lowdown, and just like, I always want to see him in just about anything that I can. And so it was really nice to see him in his unfortunately his last days and one of his last performances. Always a blessing to see him and him act with Ethan Hawke, and these are two of my favorite actors. And so it was just like, it was so cool to see, and I was really pleased.
Well, I want to go to Sunrise now. I mean, Sunrise, you're currently in Oklahoma. What do you make of Sterling's perspective on the city of Tulsa in the show?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that show depict, our communities up there. But he really grabs a tone of what Tulsa is like. There's a motley cast, and there's motley characters, and there's this sort of like maybe grittiness, but it's like character and personality and connection to history and land all shine through. And that's something he's really captured, I think, certainly in the main character, Lee, that's played by Ethan Hawke. But we're certainly hearing that in that Graham Greene scene. And that's something that's, really important, I think, when we think about how our indigenous communities are not just about individuals. It's about where we come from, the spaces and the people with whom we share that space. And Tulsa is an example of that. And, that is really important to be able to depict with such accuracy in a way that can kind of compare and contrast the way that, history has been depicted of other cities like New York or Los Angeles or Chicago. And those are, there are indigenous perspectives in those spaces, and they're somewhat missing in a lot of depictions. But Sterling's really put that up at the front here in Tulsa and really made it part of the character. Yes. And so it's going to be hard to not think about those identities moving forward, and because of his attention to Tulsa and those identities again related to Tulsa. I think that's really important. It's great.
Yeah, and Johnny J, I want to bring you back into the conversation. I mean, one of the most talked films of the year is Sinners by Black Panther director Ryan Coogler. This film features some scenes of Choctaw men chasing after a vampire in Mississippi. What do you like about Sinners, and what do you make of the collaboration Coogler had with the Mississippi Choctaw tribe?
Well, I'm biased because I am Choctaw. So, for me, the moment that I saw them on screen, I almost jumped out of my seat. And I was like, yes, because, there's such, Sinners is such just like a masterclass in storytelling. There are so many different layers.
Test.
But what drew me to this film was just the history of it. And the moment that you see those native, specifically the Choctaw in this world where you have this Irish vampire, right, you kind of are taken right to the history, because there is a relationship between the Choctaw Nation and the Irish people. And it's a bond that has lasted for centuries and continues to this day, because back in the day, when the famine was going on in Ireland, the Choctaw, who were just 16 years from trying to recover from the Trail of Tears and trying to still figure out how to live in these new lands, were able to gather around $170 that they sent to the Irish to help with relief efforts. And that one act of generosity really created this bond that continues. That even now, that during the pandemic, in an effort to repay that generosity, the Irish people were donating to different Native efforts to protect people. They donated to the Navajo Nation. They were just really trying to make sure that they could pay that forward in some way. So the moment that the Choctaw vampire showed up on screen, you're automatically drawn to that relationship, because they were pursuing Remick, not as saviors in the show, but as protectors of their own people. And it kind of flipped that, because Remick became a representation not of the Irish people themselves, but of that literal and symbolic rot of colonialism, because they were colonized in the same ways that we were as Native people. So that history was just forefront, and it was just a couple of minutes, right? But it had such a huge impact that even now people are still talking about that moment in Sinners when they showed up.
To Sean here in a second, but Jason, I want to ask you because you almost missed the Choctaw scene in the theaters, right?
Yeah, I had I was telling Soul here. I was like, I was waiting for that scene because I knew it was going to come, and then I believe it was like I made it all the way. There was and then the sex scene happened, and after the sex scene, I was like, "Woo! I got to use the bathroom." That was pretty hot. So I go leave, and I was like, I come back, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna see this like I can't wait to see this Choctaw scene, and like the whole rest of the movie. I missed it when I went to use the bathroom, and so I had to watch it on HBO Max and find it specifically. I'm like, all right, where is this scene? And come to find out, yeah, it's like 2 minutes or something, and it's a beautiful 2 minutes, but it's like, oh man, wouldn't that be a cool genre picture of these vampire hunters, like the story of these guys? But if you blink it, you'll miss it. And I went to the bathroom and missed it. So,
Jason, you got to time those restroom breaks a little better.
Yeah,
I think,
no kidding.
Johnny J, I want to ask you about this new news site that you started. It's Native Pop Culture, Red Pop News, and what led you to start this new form of media? And how would you describe this year in terms of just overall Native pop culture?
I started Red Pop News. I am the founder of a tribe called Geek, which for many years really highlighted our contributions to pop culture, but also to STEM. And so this is just an extension of that work. And it came from just the lack of coverage that we get in general for our contributions to anything. And, for me, I love movies. I love music. And the thing that always gets me is that there's so much work going on in Indian country that never gets that shine. We're talking about all these movies. Sunrise mentioned that it's like a transitional period. And it really is, because I live in Los Angeles, so you kind of get a little of the industry talk. But given the political climate that we're in, we're seeing a drop in support for diverse projects. And, there's a huge war against DEI. And for us as Native people, that's one of the main things that we have to contend with, because we're such a small part of the population that we're seen as a niche genre, that there's not a lot of support for our projects. And, we went from having reservation dogs to Rutherford Falls. We had a huge support for like North of North even, but yet we hear nothing about new projects coming, and there's not a lot of support for projects that were in progress. There was a pilot that was hopefully going to be picked up by NBC, by the creator of Rutherford Falls, and, it ended up not getting picked up, and it had a stellar cast and would have been so great to see a Native community center being portrayed on TV, especially as a comedy. So, Red Pop News just came from wanting to highlight that work and give our creatives more support, because we have so many movies. We're mentioning just a few, but if you look at Native film festivals, the lineups that they have, like there are hundreds of films that get made every year, and most of them are shorts because we don't get that monetary support that we need for bigger projects. But the fact that we're able to drive our own film industry as Native people, and we're starting to see tribes get in on this. The Cherokee Nation has their own film industry that they're building. We have other tribes that are starting to build their own studios as well. To see that is really incredible. So with Red Pop News, I just want to make sure that our creatives are getting some of the shine that they deserve.
Well, with that, we are out of time, unfortunately, so we're going to have to wrap up this conversation. Great summary of the year 2025 in terms of Native film, television, and documentaries. All of these films, all of these television shows, these documentaries, these shorts, the animated stuff, everything we've been talking about today, these lists will all be on our website. So check them out, nativeamericacalling.com. And we're just looking forward to a great 2026 and more Native productions, film, television, documentaries. We're going to see it all again 2026, and we'll have this show again next year with a lot of more great highlights for you, our listeners. And with that, big thanks to our guests today, Johnny J, Jason Asnap, Sunrise Tipicani, and Kimberly Guerrero. And please don't forget, you can join us again tomorrow. We'll hear from researchers who are building an online archive that sheds light on the history of enslavement of indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere. Happy New Year. I'm Sean Spruce.
Every family caregiver could use help finding the necessary resources to care for their loved one. The AARP Family Caregiver Resource Guide helps family caregivers access key programs, services, and agencies in their communities. A copy of the guide is available by calling 877-333-5885 or online at aarp.org/caregiverresources. AARP supports this show. Repatriation is the return of ancestors and stolen culture. The Association on American Indian Affairs is hosting the 11th annual Repatriation Conference, Feeding the Fire, Advancing the Movement, in February 2026. This fully virtual conference will offer small group interactive workshops, strategies, networking, and more to advance domestic and international repatriation. More at Indian-Affairs.org. The association supports this show.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.